So I haven't checked the latest unemployment numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's still in the double digits. Now, I'm not one to blame Obama for an economy that he largely inherited, but let's think about that double digit number. Let's just say 10%, because I know it was at that point at one point. Um, does that mean there's no work to be done? That we've pretty much done it all, and there's just that 90% of the population is able to do 100% of the work that needs to be done. Are there no projects that could be done to improve our society? Perhaps even ones that people would be willing to pay for. Um, it's a little strange when I think about it. I mean, there are these unemployed people. They want to buy goods and services, and there are producers who would like to sell them goods and services, but they can't. But they can't. Why? Because these unemployed people don't have money. Why don't they have money? Because there's no jobs. Why are there no jobs? Because people aren't buying things. Do you see the dilemma here? I don't think a lot of people have really stopped to consider the absurdity of unemployment. Um, Even in good times, economists will talk about the quote unquote natural rate of unemployment. Do you remember this from my Econ 101 class? That I think they said it was 4%. It's fluctuated at times. Other times they've said 2%, 3%, sometimes 5%, 6%. But I think a cursory glance at human history would indicate that a natural rate of unemployment is at least very close to 0%. If you look at a hunter-gatherer society, you may have elderly people who are too old to hunt, but even then, they'd probably help pick berries and stuff. And you may have someone who's wounded or has a broken leg or something, and humans, at least since the emergence of Homo sapiens, have been pretty caring towards the infirm and elderly. That's largely what separates us from the apes. But okay, all right. Basically, in a hunter-gatherer society, anyone who wants to work, wants to contribute to society, can do work. There's plenty for them to do. Um, and what is different about that from our current society? Well, there is specialization, of course. And a hunter-gatherer pretty much has to be skilled at everything that hunter-gatherers do. But even with specialization, I don't think that's a full enough explanation. What you can also look at with hunter-gatherers is that there is no private property, at least not in the natural resources that they use. They go out into the wild in these hunting grounds and hunt down, I don't know, gazelle or something. And well, other people stay and pick berries and find fruits and vegetables to eat and stuff. But no one is charging them a fee for using that land. Or no one, or there's no private owner of that land to tell them they can't hunt there and they got to hunt in the less valuable area. So I think the private ownership of land is a huge factor in that. Basically, by owning a piece of this natural space, by owning those resources, you are able to command not just the product of your own labor, but the product of other people's labor as well. And that's what our society is largely built on: is people being able to command the labor of others for the use of natural resources, which they did not create. So I think first and foremost, ending poverty will involve the restoration of the commons, restoring natural resources to a sense of common ownership through, by basically charging people for what they take from the commons, from natural resources. Having a full land value tax, by having mineral extraction tax, by charging polluters for any pollution or carbon emissions or any externalities they create. By having fishing licenses and logging fees and things like that. Basically, first of all, that would encourage recycling, which would be good for us all anyway. Second of all, owning land in particular means that the land that people do own will be put to its optimal use, so that instead of firing people because it's more profitable, it's actually going to be most profitable to be most productive and create the most jobs, because under those conditions, I think what's called Say's law would apply. That supply creates its own demand, namely that the more that when people are hired, they increase demand for products, which increases the demand for jobs. John Maynard Keynes kind of opposed Say's law by kind of flipping it and saying demand creates its own supply, but in a sense that's also true. Basically, there are workers who are also consumers, and by creating a society in which their demands are met by other producers, you pretty much solve unemployment. But wait, there's more, because there's also the issue of credit, loans, basically. The banking system is owned by a private oligopoly, which is basically the banking oligopoly are the main owners of our Federal Reserve System as well, and basically, they create money out of loans through fractional reserve banking, in which you deposit, say, $100 through a thing called the money multiplier process. They expand that to $1,000, and so they create most of the money in society. And guess where they spend that money? In loans. Not so much to the little private business owner or small business owner who wants to create more jobs. It's often towards things like credit default swaps and collateralized debt obligations and all this shit that that led to the mess that we're in right now. So I think, for one thing, the money power ought to be taken from the banks and put in the hands of government, who actually has the constitutional duty to create the money supply, and spent into existence through wealth creating infrastructure projects, which would in turn enrich society, and then that enrichment in the form of rents is taxed, and then it's used to create more wealth, etc., etc. And then furthermore, I've actually been reading the ideas of Silvio Gesell, who talked about how interest rates could be reduced to zero by basically making it so that money effectively rots, so to speak, that basically money loses its value by holding on to it, so that banks, instead of holding on to money, have the incentive to lend it out more, even at 0% interest, which would be a huge boon to young aspiring entrepreneurs. So anyway, I've probably rambled enough for now. Thanks for listening. Peace.